this unassuming, fungus-ridden log, and this shimmering, finished vase. They're the same piece of wood. The question is, how? How do you look at this raw, chaotic block and see the potential for this? Secret's not just in the tools. It's in learning to read a story written in bark and grain, and it all starts outside on the chopping block. This is the crotch section of the log, taken from where the trunk splits into two massive limbs. Inside, there's dark, meandering lines that reveal a battle, a visual record of the fungus starting the process of decay. This is called spalting. If the process goes on too long, the wood becomes useless. But if you catch it just at the right moment, you're rewarded with these patterns that no true trees will ever replicate. Honestly, the most important decisions of this whole project happen right now, before the wood even touches the lathe. How we break down this log determines everything that follows. Oh, that's gotta hurt. Anyway, the goal isn't just to get a piece of wood that we can turn, but to orient the cuts to capture the absolute best of this incredible figure. So, how do you find that prize in a rough log? You have to be able to read the log. The real map here, it's in the end grain. I'm looking for the two piths, the very center of each original branch. Between them, you're going to see the growth rings compress and wave, creating that pattern that looks like flame or a feather. The tightest, most iridescent part of that flame is the heart of the figure. My entire cutting strategy revolves around one thing: aligning the blank so this exact spot lands on the widest, most prominent part of the final vase. Everything else is secondary. With the chainsaw work done, we move to the bandsaw. The bandsaw gives us more precision and has a thinner kerf, which means less wasted wood. Cutting a thick, heavy block like this, you need a coarse blade with a low tooth count, something like 3 teeth per inch, to clear the sawdust. I'm cutting the center out of this slab, making sure the two piths on either side are cut out from the center. The little amount of waste that I have will be cut into pin blanks for my good friend who loves turning pins. I end up with 3 nice chunks from this one slab. That means 1 or 2 vases and at least 1 nice bowl. We pick the piece that looks like it'll be the best for our vase today, and we move on to the most fun part for me. It's time to get this to the lathe. All right, this is where the chaos of raw wood meets the order of the wood lathe. First step is mounting this heavy, unbalanced blank. We're going to start off between centers. The live center that will spin with the wood gets pressed firmly into the center of the blank, creating a solid connection between the headstock and the tailstock, sandwiching the wood in between them. This support is absolutely crucial to cut down on vibration and to prevent the piece from coming flying out. I'm using a large, heavy-duty bowl gouge with a swept-back grind. It's designed to remove a lot of wood fast. The first contacts are just a series of intermittent ticks as the high corners hit the tool. I start by taking fairly light passes, just skimming the surface. Then I move the tool rest in a bit and take a deeper cut. Now instead of ticks, you're getting ribbons of wood peeling away. A rough, lumpy block is surrendering its sharp corners and slowly becoming a perfect cylinder. I work my way from headstock to tailstock and then back again, creating a continuous surface. The vibrations start to fade as the blank gets more balanced. The sound changes from a rhythmic thumping to a steady, satisfying hum. At this point, we can ramp the speed up and get more of a clean cut with less tear out. Once we get the blank cylindrical, the wood beneath is revealed for the first time. And there it is, the first glimpse of the spalting lines, crisp and black against the pale maple. Spalting is the natural process in which fungi colonize the wood, creating distinctive and often decorative patterns and colorizations, like dark zone lines or lighter white rod areas. It occurs when wood, especially hardwoods like maple, birch, and beech, is exposed to conditions favorable for fungal growth, primarily moisture, warmth, and oxygen. The distinct markings are caused by fungal colonies competing and creating territorial boundaries. At the same time, the feather of the crotch figure begins to emerge as well. shimmering as the light hits the freshly cut fibers. Even at this rough stage, you can see promise of what's to come. The roughing stage is done now. We no longer have a block. We have a canvas. With the blank now a perfectly balanced cylinder, we switch gears from engineering to artistry. This is where we stop just removing waste and start creating a final shape. I have a classic sweeping curve in mind that will rise from a small foot to a wider shoulder before tucking back in towards the opening. This shape should give us a large, uninterrupted canvas to really show off the grain of this maple crotch. I start at the bottom, near the tailstock, then begin shaping the curve rising up from it. This type of cut here is really important. I'm using the gouge to make what's called a push cut, where the bevel of the tool rubs against the wood right behind the cutting edge. This gives support and allows for a smooth, flowing cut that produces these beautiful, long shavings. You're slicing the wood, not scraping it. It's a dance between you, the tool, and the wood. As I work my way up the vase, I'm constantly stepping back to look at the overall profile. I'm looking for one clean, flowing curve. No lumps, no flat spots. The crotch figure is truly starting to pop out now. As I cut across the grain, a phenomenon called chatoyance appears. It's a shimmering, almost holographic effect where the grain seems to move as you look at it from different angles. It's caused by the way the light reflects off the wavy wood fibers that were compressed in the crotch of the tree. I'm paying close attention to how the shape I'm creating works with the patterns in the wood. I want the widest part of the vase to hit right where the feathered grain is most dramatic. The spalting lines are like contour lines on a map, and the shape of the vase can either make them sing or fight against them. I'm letting the wood guide my decisions here. As I get to the top of the shoulder of the vase, the cut becomes more delicate. I have to be very cautious as I enter the corner right there. Any little mistake here, a slight catch or a tool mark, it'll be glaringly obvious in the final piece. I refine the whole shape with a few light passes of my scraper. This tool, held flat on the tool rest, is for a final smoothing. It just takes off just the finest of shavings here, leaving a surface that's incredibly smooth and ready for sanding. After a few passes with the scraper, the exterior shape is done. It just sits there on the lathe, a smooth, flowing form that displays spectacular figure that was hidden less than an hour ago. Now that I'm satisfied with the body of the vase, it's time to shift my focus to the top, or the opening, or the neck of the vase. You'll see as I progress through the different cuts here, I was having a hard time finding what felt right, what looked right in comparison to the body of the vase. It's always important, once again, to step back, take in the piece as a whole, look it all over, and see what feels right. You'll notice multiple times I place my hand over the chunk of wood that is there just as support with the drive center to see what it'll look like once that wood is removed. In doing that, my eye sees that the outer rim here is still protruding just a little too much for my liking. So I go back and I refine the shape a little bit more until I get something that's pleasing to my eye and makes more sense. I'm trying to decide if I like a curve coming out of that joint or if it should be a more sharp angle. It's important to play with the shape, but sometimes it's also important to have contrasting lines and contrasting angles that kind of draws your eye into what could be a focal point in the piece. In the end, I want the takeaway from this to be to play around a little bit. It's always important to have a good idea of what you're going to do going into a project, but at the same time, it's important to have an open mind as well. Not everything that you lay out in your head when you walk into a project is going to translate well in the end. So it's good to be able to go with the flow and see what the wood is offering and see what, at the end of the day, just feels right. I ended up preferring a sharp line at the joint here. It kind of makes it look like it's an open form with a lid that attaches at the top. Once you're satisfied with the overall shape, it's time to put sandpaper to wood and get that prepared and ready to go for the finish. For the finish for this project, I decided to go with the Mylan's two-step high gloss finish. We'll just gloss over, pun intended, the finishing process on the exterior. We'll go over in much more detail when we get to the end product. And now that the exterior is completely finished, it's time for the most nerve-wracking part, hollowing. With the piece now securely mounted in our four-jaw chuck, first order of business is just to remove the waste wood at the top of the vase. At this point, I go ahead and start playing a little bit with the shape of the top of the vase here as well. For this vase, I decided to use a Forstner bit to hollow out the vast majority of the inside. With a very minimal finagling, I was able to get a Forstner bit all the way down to the bottom of this vase. I wanted the rim of this vase to be essentially wide open. Also, this helps to allow enough room for the Jacob's chuck to reach that extra half an inch that we needed to get down to the very bottom. A lot of people, myself included, think of sanding as a chore, but it's one of the most critical steps in the entire process. A great finish can't hide a poor sanding job. It'll only highlight imperfections. The goal is to remove every single tool mark and progressively refine the surface until it's smooth as glass. Now it's time to apply the finish, the most magical part of the process where the wood finally reveals its true depth of color. It's the moment the grain pops. For this piece, I'm using a two-step finishing process from Mylan's, a system known for producing a tough, high-gloss finish. The first step is a coat of cellulose sanding sealer. This soaks into the wood fibers, hardens them, and seals the pores to ensure the top goes on evenly. On highly figured wood like the spalted maple, a good sealer is essential for a professional result. With the lathe stopped, I apply the sanding sealer liberally with a clean paper towel. The wood immediately darkens, giving me a preview of what the final color is going to look like. The spalting lines turn a deep jet black, and the feathered grain starts to show incredible depth. Once the sealer is dry, the surface feels a little rough again, and that's because the sealer has raised the grain. You can now lightly denib the surface. You take 600 grit sandpaper with the lathe spinning slowly and make a few very light passes over the entire piece. Now for step 2, the high gloss lacquer. This will provide a durable, protective coating and give it that brilliant shine. The effect is immediate and just incredible. The moment that lacquer hits the wood, the colors deepen, the figure explodes with life. The chatoyance becomes a deep, three-dimensional river of light and dark, shimmering and moving as the vase turns. It's an absolutely breathtaking transformation. If you've enjoyed this journey from a piece of decaying firewood to a finished work of art and want to see more stories emerge from forgotten pieces of wood, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you have any questions about the process or have your own experiences with spalted maple, share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you.